He failed again and again, but never gave up. Learn English through emotional storytelling. The classroom was silent except for the sound of a ticking clock. Ethan stared at the test paper in front of him. The words looked like they were swimming. His heart beat faster with every second. He could feel the sweat forming under his shirt, even though the room was cold. He knew this feeling too well. Failure. Again. He looked around. The other students were writing quickly, flipping pages, scribbling answers like it was easy. For them, maybe it was, but not for him. Not today, not ever. He picked up his pencil, but his hand was shaking. He wrote something down, then erased it, then stared again. 10 minutes passed, then 20. He had answered 3 questions, out of 50. When the bell rang, Ethan didn't move. The others stood, stretched, smiled, talked about lunch. He stayed in his seat, his head low, ashamed of what he would have to hand in. The teacher came by, gave him a small smile, and said, "Don't worry, Ethan. Just try again next time. Try again." He had heard those words so many times, they didn't mean anything anymore. Outside, he walked slowly to his locker. The hallway felt like it was made of glass, clear, cold, and fragile. He opened the locker door and saw the list, his goals. Get a B+ in math, finish reading 1 book a month, make the soccer team, speak up in class at least once. He stared at the list now filled with red X's. He had tried, he really had. But the results never showed. His friends didn't understand. Come on, man, just focus. His dad didn't understand. You need to work harder. Even his little brother didn't understand. Why are you always sad? He didn't know what to say anymore. He just smiled and said, "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He was tired, tired of trying, tired of failing, tired of hoping. That night he sat at his desk, the test paper in front of him again. A big red F at the top. His dad hadn't said much, just shook his head. Walked away. Ethan looked at the mark, then at his bookshelf, then at the mirror. "Maybe I'm just not smart," he whispered. Then something happened. He heard a knock on the door. It was his grandfather. Old, quiet, always gentle. The kind of man who didn't talk much. But when he did, people listened. "Can I come in?" his grandfather asked. Ethan nodded. The old man walked in slowly and sat beside him. He looked at the paper, then at Ethan. "Rough day?" he asked. Ethan nodded again. His grandfather didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, "Did I ever tell you I was kicked out of school when I was your age?" Ethan looked at him surprised. "You?" he asked. His grandfather smiled. "Yes. I failed math 3 times. Got into a fight once. The principal said I wasn't going anywhere in life." "What did you do?" Ethan asked. "I cried," he said. "I wanted to disappear. But then I made a decision. I promised myself I would keep showing up. Even if I failed again, even if nobody believed in me, I would still try. Not because I wanted to prove them wrong, but because I wanted to prove myself right." Ethan stared at him. "Did it work?" he asked. His grandfather nodded slowly. "Eventually. But it took time, and patience, and a lot of failing." He reached into his pocket and pulled out an old coin. It was scratched and worn. "I carried this every day for 60 years, he said. Whenever I wanted to give up, I held it. It reminded me, you only fail when you stop trying. He placed the coin in Ethan's hand. It's your turn now, he said. Then he stood, smiled, and walked out of the room. Ethan looked at the coin for a long time. It didn't fix everything, but it gave him something. A little spark. And sometimes that's enough. The next day he woke up earlier. He didn't check his phone. He didn't lie in bed. He sat at his desk, opened his math book, and started from page 1. He didn't understand everything, but he didn't stop. Each day he read one more page, watched one more video, or asked one more question. In class, he still felt nervous. His heart still beat too fast. But he raised his hand once. Then again. Then again. He started writing down every mistake he made. Not to feel bad, but to learn. He stayed after school, asked the teacher for help, asked his friend to explain the hard parts. It was slow, frustrating, sometimes painful, but he kept going. And then something happened. One day he got a test back, not an F, not even a D. It was a C+, not perfect, but better. He smiled, a real smile. And when his dad saw the paper, he paused. Then he smiled too. I'm proud of you, he said. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan believed it. That weekend he practiced soccer, alone, for hours. He wasn't the fastest, or the strongest. But he was the one who didn't stop running. He tried out again. And this time, he made the team, as a substitute. But that didn't matter, because he was in. He started reading again, slowly, page by page, at night with a lamp by his bed. He didn't understand every word, but he wrote down the ones he didn't know, looked them up, used them in sentences. One day his English teacher called on him. Ethan, do you want to share your thoughts on the story? He froze for a second, but then he remembered the coin in his pocket. He stood up, and he spoke. His voice shook, his hands trembled, but he finished, and the class clapped. Not because it was perfect, but because it was real. Because he showed up. He failed again, and again, but he never gave up. The winter came early that year. The days grew short, and the mornings were cold enough to make your breath visible. Most students rushed into school with their hands in their pockets, their faces half asleep. But Ethan was always there early now, sometimes before the janitor even unlocked the main door. He liked the quiet. He liked the way the hallway echoed with his footsteps, like the building knew he was there, like it was listening to his effort. He started writing on the whiteboard in his room before class began. Not equations, not answers, just words. One day it said, you only lose if you stop learning. The next day, one small step is better than no step. He didn't sign his name. He didn't tell anyone. But students noticed, teachers noticed, and slowly, something changed. Not just in his grades, but in how people saw him. The boy who used to sit at the back, head down invisible, was now becoming someone different. Still quiet, still unsure at times, but steady. One afternoon after soccer practice, he stayed behind to clean the field. No one asked him to. He just did it. The coach walked over, looked at him for a long moment, then said, "You're not the most talented player I've had, Ethan. But I've never seen anyone fight like you. Ethan just nodded. He didn't need big praise. He just needed progress. At home, he kept working. His room was filled with small, sticky notes on the walls. Words he wanted to remember. Mistake. Lesson. Today's pain is tomorrow's strength. Be the one who stays. His younger brother started watching him more closely. One night, as Ethan was studying, his brother sat beside him. "Can you teach me how to do that?" he asked. "Do what? Try like that," he said. Ethan paused, then smiled, and opened his notebook. At school, his English teacher gave the class a new assignment. Write a personal essay. Something real. Something true. Ethan stared at the blank page for a long time. Then he began. He wrote about failure, about fear, about standing in front of the class with shaking hands and speaking anyway, about the time he thought he was broken, and about the old coin in his pocket that reminded him every day, you only fail when you stop trying. He didn't use big words. He didn't try to sound smart. He just told the truth. When the teacher read his essay, she didn't say anything at first. Then she handed it back with one sentence written at the top. "You just made me cry. Thank you." He folded the paper gently and placed it in his journal. Not because of the grade, but because it meant something. People were beginning to see his heart, not just his mistakes. Months passed, and so did the hard days. There were still moments he wanted to quit. Still nights when the numbers on the math page looked like a foreign language. Still mornings when getting out of bed felt like carrying bricks on his shoulders. But the difference was this: he kept going anyway. And that's what changed everything. One day the principal called him into the office. Ethan sat down nervously, wondering if he was in trouble. The principal smiled. "You've come a long way, Ethan." Ethan nodded quietly. "We'd like to nominate you for the Student Perseverance Award," she said. He blinked. "Me, yes," she said. "Because you're not the same boy who walked into this school last year. You've shown every one of us what it means to rise." Ethan didn't know what to say, so he just whispered, "Thank you." That night, he walked home slowly. The sun was setting behind the trees, casting long shadows on the sidewalk. He reached into his pocket and took out the old coin. It felt warm from being held all day. He stopped at the park bench where he used to sit when things felt hopeless. He sat down, looked at the coin, and remembered. The test, the tears, the silence, the failures. And then the steps. Tiny steps that had brought him all the way here. He looked up at the sky. The stars were just starting to show. "I'm not finished yet," he said quietly, and he meant it. Spring arrived like a whisper. The trees outside the school slowly changed their bare branches, filling with light green leaves. Flowers appeared along the sidewalks, quiet but confident, like they were waking up after a long sleep. So was Ethan. He wasn't the same. He still walked with quiet steps, still carried a backpack full of books and notes and questions. But his eyes were different now. Focused, steady. Like someone who had been through something hard and made it through. In science class, he asked more questions. In English, he shared more ideas. In math, he didn't always get the right answers, but he no longer feared the wrong ones. He stopped trying to be perfect and started trying to be present. That changed everything. At home, his dad still worked long hours, still came home tired. But now, when he passed Ethan's door and saw the light still on, he didn't say, "Go to sleep." He said, "You're working hard. I see you." Sometimes he would knock on the door with a cup of hot chocolate and say, "You need a break." That meant more than Ethan could explain. His little brother started writing his own list of goals. He taped them beside Ethan's. And sometimes when Ethan didn't feel strong, he looked at that second list. And he remembered someone was watching. Someone was learning from his fight. The soccer season was almost over. Ethan had spent most games on the bench, watching, waiting. Until one game, something happened. It was the final 10 minutes. The team was behind by 1 goal. The coach looked at him and said, "Get in there." Ethan stood. His heart raced, his legs felt heavy, but he nodded and ran onto the field. He didn't score a goal. He didn't make the perfect play. But he ran like he had something to prove to himself. Like every step was his story being told in motion. And in the final minute when the ball was loose and everyone else had stopped chasing it, Ethan didn't. He ran, he reached it, he passed it. And that pass became the assist that tied the game. After the whistle blew, his teammates surrounded him. Not because he won the game, but because he showed up when it mattered. After the game, the coach pulled him aside. "You're not the strongest. You're not the fastest," he said. "But you've got something that most players don't." Ethan looked at him, waiting. The coach put a hand on his shoulder. "You don't give up." Ethan smiled, not the kind that fades in a second, but the kind that stays with you. That reminds you who you are. He walked home that night under the stars, a soft breeze in the air, and the old coin in his hand. When he got home, he sat at his desk, opened his journal, and wrote a single sentence, "I failed again and again. But I never gave up." And that made all the difference. He underlined the words, "never gave up." Then he closed the book and turned off the light. The school year came to an end. Finals, farewells, empty lockers. Ethan's report card was handed to him on a quiet Tuesday morning. He sat alone in the courtyard, afraid to open it. For a long time, he just held it. Then finally, he took a deep breath, unfolded the paper, and read. No F's, no D's, a few C's, some B's, and just an A in English. He stared at it for a long time. Not because it was the best grade, but because it was his. Earned. Line by line, step by step, day after day. He folded the paper slowly, carefully, and placed it inside his notebook. Then he looked up at the sky. Blue, open, waiting. That summer, Ethan did something he never thought he'd do. He applied for a part-time job at the local library. When they called him for an interview, he almost didn't go. His old fear returned. What if I say the wrong thing? What if I don't know the answer? But then he reached into his pocket. The coin. He felt its familiar shape, its weight. And he remembered you only fail when you stop trying. So he went. He spoke slowly, honestly, with quiet confidence. The librarian, a kind woman with silver hair, looked at his application and said, "Why do you want to work here?" Ethan answered simply. "Books helped me find my strength. I want to help others find theirs too." She smiled. And 3 days later, he got the job. On his first day, a little boy walked into the library holding his mother's hand. He looked shy, unsure. Ethan knelt down and asked, "Can I help you find something?" The boy nodded. "I want a book," he said, "but I'm not good at reading." Ethan smiled gently. "I wasn't either," he said, "but I kept trying, and you can too." He handed the boy a book, sat with him, read the first page together, and something happened. In that quiet moment, surrounded by shelves of stories and second chances, Ethan realized something: his journey was no longer just about himself. It was about the people he could lift, the ones still struggling, still failing, still afraid, because he knew now. Failure isn't the end. It's the beginning of the person you're meant to become. The seasons turned again. Autumn leaves began to fall, covering the sidewalks in soft gold and burnt orange. Ethan walked down the street one morning, holding a cup of tea in one hand and a book in the other. He had just come from the library where he now worked 3 days a week. It wasn't a big job, it didn't pay much, but it meant everything to him. Because every day someone walked in feeling unsure. And every day Ethan got to remind them, "You're not alone." One afternoon, his English teacher visited the library. She saw him organizing books, helping a child find a story about space, and speaking with a quiet confidence she had never seen before. "You've changed," she said when they spoke. Ethan smiled. "I'm still changing," she nodded. "I hope you know how proud I am." Ethan didn't know what to say, so he just said, "Thank you for seeing me, even when I couldn't see myself." Later that week, something strange happened. He was walking home past the soccer field. The team was practicing. Coach spotted him from across the fence and waved him over. "Need a hand?" the coach asked. Ethan grinned. Always. He helped collect cones, fetch balls, and even helped a younger player with his form. The boy kept missing the target. Over and over again. He kicked hard, kicked wild, missed every time. He looked frustrated, ready to quit. Ethan walked over and said, "Hey, you know how many shots I missed before I made my first goal?" The boy shook his head. "Hundreds," Ethan said. The boy looked surprised. "Really?" Ethan nodded. "But I kept kicking. And one day, it worked." The boy looked at the ball, then at Ethan, and kicked again. Still missed. But this time he smiled. Because now it didn't feel like failure. It felt like learning. And that's what Ethan had come to understand most of all. Failure isn't the opposite of success. It's part of it. Without falling, there's no rising. Without doubt, there's no strength. Without pain, there's no growth. He remembered the test he once failed, the list full of red X's. The way he used to stare at the ceiling, wondering if he was broken. He wasn't. He was just becoming. Becoming someone who didn't quit. Someone who didn't run from hard things. Someone who had scars but kept walking. A few weeks later, his school held its annual awards ceremony. Ethan didn't plan to go. He didn't think he would be called for anything. He had gotten used to cheering for others, but his little brother begged him. "Please go," he said. "I think you're going to win something." So Ethan went. He wore a clean shirt, combed his hair, and sat in the back row clapping for every student who walked on stage. Then the principal took the microphone. "There is one more award," she said. "One that's not about grades, not about talent, not about being the best. It's about being brave, about showing up, about never giving up no matter how hard it gets." She paused. "This year, the Perseverance Award goes to Ethan Cole." The room clapped. His friends stood. His teachers smiled. His little brother shouted, "Yes." Ethan stood slowly. He walked to the stage. He didn't shake. He didn't hide. He stood tall and proud. When he held the small trophy in his hand, the crowd quieted. They waited for him to speak. So he took the microphone and said, "I used to think failing meant I wasn't good enough. I thought it meant I should stop. But now I know. Failing is just part of the path. You don't have to be the best. You just have to keep showing up. That's what I did, and I'm still doing it." He paused, looked out at the crowd, and finished. "If you're struggling, don't give up. Your story isn't over." The applause echoed through the room. He stepped down not as the boy who failed, but as the young man who never stopped rising. Later that night, he sat by his window at home, the trophy on his desk, and the old coin still in his pocket. He opened his journal one last time and wrote, "Failure shaped me. Discipline changed me, and belief saved me." Then he closed the book, looked up at the stars, and whispered to the night, "I'm ready for what comes next."